Hello, everyone, and welcome to this, the May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, 2016 edition, episode number 64 of Balls Deep Sports Talk. I am your host with the almost, the one and only Scotty Ball. Thank you very much for finding your way to the show this week, as hopefully you do each and every week, whether it be on YouTube, SoundCloud, or my personal favorite, the Spreaker app. And in the very near future here, maybe this week or next week, our internet radio station, glradio.net. But the point being, no matter how you're listening to the show, thank you very, very much for listening to the show. Now, if you listened to the show last week, it was a big monster 3-hour mega draft preview heavy episode where that's just what's going to happen every year on that annual mock draft episode. So we went way over what our goal time was going to be last week, but I can assure you that is not going to happen this week. We are going to keep this week's show to a solid 60 to 90 minutes, and that's it. We're going to keep it short and sweet, not ramble, rant, and run on too long. Easy for me to say right now. I'm already starting to do it. That's just my very nature, but I am certain for those who couldn't quite handle the size that we offered last week, that the size will be of a much more, modest, average size this week. And we will get to the outline of what's to come on tonight's show, this week's show, here in just a moment. But before we do that, let us finish up with our shameless plugs. So, if you're on social media, actually the more interesting question would probably be if you're not on social media, because, seriously, who isn't on some form of social media here in 2016? But anyway, if you're on Facebook, likely you are quite a bit, you can find me and hook up with the show by searching Scotty-Ball. Make sure to like and friend me. And that's a great way to keep up with everything that's going on with the show, as well as my sharing of sports news as it happens, and even the occasional take on it. But like I said, you do that by searching Scotty-Ball on Facebook. Or if you're on Twitter, which I love Twitter personally, you can follow the show at BDST Show, and same perks apply. You get sports news on there, you get show news on there, and one of my favorite things on there now, as of the last couple months, is the weekly or almost weekly link to the interviews that I'm doing for VikingsDigitalDiaries.com, where a couple months ago I started out interviewing former Vikings players. For the past few weeks I was interviewing former Gophers who were in the upcoming draft, as well as CBS Sports draft analyst Dane Brugler, getting his take on the prospects and the draft as well. And then now this week, I have moved on up to interviewing my first current member of the Minnesota Vikings. So we'll plug that in just a little bit here in the show as well. But always, if you're connected to me and the show on Twitter and or on Facebook, you will have access to that every week as well. All right, so let's get to the outline of what we're going to have on this week's show. Like I said, we're going to keep it to 60, 90 minutes, somewhere in there. We're going to go balls deep. Don't worry. We're not going to spend as much time being balls deep on, everything. So we'll pick our first thing and we'll go balls deep, and then we'll pull out. And then we'll move on to the next thing. We'll go balls deep, but then we'll pull out. And then we got to move on and go balls deep and pull out, and so on and so on. Until we have discussed everything we need to talk about. And what is that going to be, Scotty Ball? Well, obviously we're going to be talking NFL football, with the draft having concluded this past weekend First round on Thursday, second and third round on Friday, rounds 4 through 7 on Saturday. We will be going over not only all the picks for my and possibly your favorite Minnesota Vikings, but we will also be going over every pick for every team in the draft as best as we can, trades and all. And when it's all said and done, you will be getting my personal draft grades, because there's you get tons of mocks out there. I give you my mock. There's tons of draft grades out there. I'm gonna give you mine. I checked out a few here this week and was surprised. Well, not a little surprised, but surprised at a few teams that I thought did really, really well that other people weren't impressed with, and then vice versa, teams that I thought did really pathetic that a few people thought did fairly well. But rest assured, you will get my take, my complete draft grades and breakdown for all 32 NFL teams in this episode. We will also be discussing Major League Baseball, talking my and possibly your Minnesota Twins. Ugh, not a fun year so far to be a Twins fan, but we'll dive into that deeper when we get to baseball talk. We'll also take a look quick around the league standings and maybe even a peek at some statistical leaders. We will check in on both the NBA and NHL playoffs, as both are underway in their second rounds. So we'll go over all those matchups and let you know where series are at. And we'll also maybe take just a quick peek in on the Minnesota Wild, their search for a head coach. We'll also be talking some UFC, some boxing. Got a big boxing fight for once here this coming Saturday. After all, this is the week that a year ago we got the long-awaited Pacquiao-Mayweather fight. This first weekend in May is always a big fight weekend in boxing. So we'll take a peek into the boxing world. We've also got a unique big event in the horse racing world, as the Kentucky Derby is also this weekend, so maybe we'll take a peek in there. I'm not sure if we'll talk any NASCAR or PGA. A smidgen of soccer news, as there was history made of epic proportions that is worth at least taking a look at. And of course, as always, we will try to take a quick peek into the world of pro wrestling, both WWE and Lucha Underground, any professional wrestling promotion that has relevant news going on in it. Sorry, TNA, that pretty much excludes you almost every week. But we'll recap what happened at WWE Payback. We'll look ahead to what's coming up here in just 2.5 short weeks at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view. An interesting little story developed the other day with Ryback. And, of course, like I said, our Lucha Underground that we always talk about every week here, because Lucha Underground is the best thing in the world of pro wrestling right now. So, boom, that's it. That is your overview of what to expect on the show. And, 60 minutes might be a little over, over optimistic, but we're definitely going to get it in under 90. That's what she said. All right, so let's then get to our hit opening segment here on the show, which we call, say it with me, everybody, Balls on Fire. What has got me, yours truly, Scotty Ball, the most on fire, the most heated up, whether it be positive or negative. It's got to be passionate, it's got to be intense, it's got to be fiery and spicy. And this week we end up with kind of a unique topic, considering the Balls on Fire format and premise, and that is the broad topic of the NFL Draft. The reason it's unique is because I am fired up about it in both many positive and many negative ways. The most negative being the San Diego Chargers destroying my what should have been near perfect mock draft already with the third pick. But we'll get to that here in just a little bit. But so we are opening the show with our complete balls deep 2016 NFL Draft recap, breakdown, report card, the whole enchilada. Now, I think my plan of attack for this here is that we're going to try and start things off as close to where we left off as possible, and then work chronologically through the first round. And then once we close out how the first round ended, we will then do our look through each team for the entire draft, starting with our Minnesota Vikings, and get to my grades on how they drafted. But no matter who you are, what team you're a fan of, what level your fandom nerdness is at, the story for the top main story for everyone going through and coming out of this draft developed about 10 to 15 minutes before the draft started. Now, for the most part, up to that, everything had been pretty normal. We're waiting to see who the Chargers pick at 3. We pretty much know the quarterbacks are going to go 1 and 2. Not a whole lot of drama or excitement, just getting ready to go and get things underway. But man, did that change to an all-time level, an all-time high, pun intended, when approximately 10 minutes before the draft, projected number 3rd overall pick in the draft, possibly projected top rated offensive tackle in the draft, formerly projected number 1 overall pick in the draft before the Tennessee Titans traded it to a team with a quarterback need, Laremy Tunsil had a photo emerge on his Twitter account, which was hacked obviously, of him wearing a gas mask that was connected to a bong where he was getting lit up. And of course it had the picture had his Ole Miss college flag in the background of it, so you know that this took place during his college football career. And so, in the matter of 10 minutes before the draft starting, you've got the player who half of the experts, yours included, expect to be the 3rd name called, the first one that we're not 100% certain of, ends up getting wiped completely off of some teams' draft boards. Other teams, knocked him down several notches. And the thing to me that jumped out, and I found just, the thought I couldn't get past wasn't, how can you do this? How can you let this happen? How can you be so stupid? Oh, this is terrible what he did. Nothing like that whatsoever. Kid's in college and he's smoking some weed. Big effing deal. What stood out to me is the level of burn that this guy had to impose on someone to give them the motivation to acquire this, I don't want to say evidence, but acquire this, damaging material, sit on it, wait for the waited for an exact, precise moment, and then just dropped it like a nuclear freaking bomb on this man's life. And I want to say the initial estimates out right now for how much this cost him in monetary terms is $7 million. Just right now off of this first rookie contract is approximately the dollar amount that it is estimated it cost Laremy Tunsil, how far he ended up dropping in the draft as a result of it. Now, he did go 13th overall to the Miami Dolphins. He was still in the first round. But there was no reason to believe this guy was ever going to fall out of the top 10, if even the top 5 or top 6, until this happened 10 minutes before the draft. And the craziest thing of all of it wasn't even over yet for Laremy Tunsil, but we'll get to that in just a moment. But the one thing I want to add to, the Laremy Tunsil story up until that point where he did finally get drafted, was the whole time, he's in attendance, obviously expecting to be drafted highly in the first round. Many of those people show up to attend the draft, walk up on stage, shake hands with the commissioner, hold up the jersey, have their moment, that thing. And as he continues to fall They keep showing him on the camera, sitting there and talking about him. And there were a couple points